Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, but why have you invited me? It says Youth for Good Governance. I have no business to be here. Get people who are young. She's fine. Do you have no business to be inviting me? You have no business to be inviting Mr. Raghunath to speak on this. But since you have invited me, there are some things I'm going to say. And I will divide it into two parts. Notice what this says. It says Youth for Good Governance. It does not say good governance for youth. The meanings of the two expressions are somewhat different. I have been noticing some of the things that people have been saying on Twitter, particularly to Shilpi, and most of those are in terms of good governance for youth. What I mean by that is expectations by the youth from the government on what should be done. It is less about youth for good governance, which is why in the initial remarks that I'm going to make, I will segment those remarks into two parts. The first part will be good governance for youth, and the second part will be youth for good governance. Good governance for youth. Governance is an expression that is widely used. Everyone uses it, but very few people try to define it and explain why we are using the word governance as opposed to the expression government, which in our context really means the three organs of state that are set down in the Constitution: the Parliament, the legislature, I should say, the executive, and the judiciary. There are several studies around the world which try to correlate governance, however you choose to measure it, and the level of economic development, however you choose to measure it. But what you have is correlation. It is by no means obvious what the causation is. Is it the case that good governance, however we define it, leads to better economic development? Or is it that better economic development improves governance? Why is this important? I'll tell you in a minute. Governance distinguished from governance distinguished from government is about a process also. But at the end of it, we have to make up our minds about what we want the government to do. India's per capita income in dollars is still $1,500, which is relatively poor. India's per capita income is not $10,000. So the Indian government, in terms of governance, will also have limited administrative capacity to deliver. So if you expect the government, whether it is in Delhi, whether it is in the states, or whether it is lower down at the level of the panchayats and urban local bodies, if you expect the government to do 50 different things, it will do all of those 50 different things inefficiently. So the question before young India is, what do you expect the government to do? Do you expect the government to give you free food? Do you expect the government to give you jobs? And every time the government subsidizes you through free food, through other kinds of doles, it is money that could have been spent elsewhere. So before, as young India, you demand things on the part of the government, you need to ask, what are your priorities? Because there are scarce resources, because there is scarce administrative capacity on the part of the government, what is your list of priorities? When you decide on how to spend whatever amount of money you have got every month, there are 20 different claims on that money you have. All the time you are doing that prioritization and you are saying that I will do X as opposed to Y. Exactly similarly, for the government also one needs to prioritize. Here is my list of priorities on what I think the government should do. Point number 1. It is the government's role to provide law and order. That is the reason we are electing a government in the first place. So the first priority for a government is to ensure law and order. The second priority for a government, for me, is to ensure roads, electricity, and water. Because there are areas, rural India, let us say, where the private sector will not come along and build roads. The private sector will not come along and provide drinking water and irrigation water. The private sector may have a role in the distribution of electricity, but the private sector will not have a major role, some role, but not a major role in generation of electricity or even transmission of electricity. I'm not even mentioning health and education, although some of you may mention schools, and I won't disagree. Some of you may mention primary health centers, I won't disagree. But the reason I don't think those are terribly important is I think that if you get the roads, the water and the electricity, the schools and the primary health centers follow. So this is what we want the government to do. In addition, maybe in some cases, only some cases, we want the government to subsidize. Who do we want the government to subsidize? We want the government to subsidize people who are not in working age groups, people who are old, people who are disabled, women. Perhaps we want the government to subsidize something like the ICDS, which is directed towards infants and mothers. Other than that, I don't think the government needs to subsidize anyone, because I do not think anyone is voluntarily poor. So if you give them that enabling environment, and one of the most important principles for the government is to provide the enabling environment. If you provide the enabling environment, people are not voluntarily poor. No one wishes to be poor. So give them the law and order, give them the roads, water, electricity, give them the enabling environment. Don't give them jobs. Then people in Bihar will not fight over a few measly jobs in the railways. Why is this important? The reason it is important is it's supposed to be a young country, right? By the way, it will not remain young indefinitely. Beyond the year 2035, it will become old. It will begin to gray. The so-called demographic dividend, we have already lost 10 years of that. Now, these are the things I think you should expect from the government. But the question I'm asking you is, the government is not represented by young people. The people who take the decisions are not young. We are talking about you people, so we are talking about India's future in the year 2030. The people who are taking the decisions today will not be alive in 2030. You will be alive. It concerns your future. It does not concern Dr. Manmohan Singh's future. So the question I am posing before you is, if your future is at stake, and if the government's priorities are completely different, what are you doing to ensure that that governance for youth happens? Because if you do not raise your voices, if you do not exercise the pressure, the government at whatever level will continue to do whatever it has been doing for the last 65 odd years, and we will continue to be in this mess. And then after 2035, we will again say, we missed the bus. Let me now come to this part. Youth for good governance. The way I interpret youth for good governance is in slightly different terms. By youth for good governance, I mean, or I interpret it as the role young people play in actual institutions of government. And it seems to be extremely tragic to me that in this young country, I'm repeating something I said, but there's a reason why I'm repeating it, that in this young country, we have very limited representation of the young in any government organ or institution you can think of. Ask yourself the following. At what age did Dr. Manmohan Singh become the Deputy Chairman of the Planning Commission? At what age did Dr. Manmohan Singh become the Governor of the Reserve Bank? And ask, at that age, will it be possible for anyone in India today to become the Deputy Chairman of the Planning Commission or the RBI Governor? And the answer is no. India had a representation of youth across government institutions in the 50s. Maybe a little bit in the 80s. But the last time we had young people in the government system was in the 50s and early 60s. And we have a problem also within political parties. Yes, she is my role model also, except for one thing. I don't think she has any business to be in the Rajya Sabha. The Rajya Sabha is meant for the sasas of the world. The bahus of the world should be in Lok Sabha. The question I am asking is the following. You are at the age of 25 and you decide to enter politics. How many years, she's an exception, how many years will you have to invest before you come to a position of some prominence in the political party? You will be 55, at least, which is the reason a political leader in India is still described as a young leader even when he is 65. Some political parties are better at inner party democracy, because that is what we are talking about, and some political parties are worse. But this is a malady that plagues all political parties. So whether it is governance for youth, whether it is youth for governance, in both cases, the bottom line I want to leave you with is what I said earlier. The change will happen if you raise your voices, collectively as well as individually. Individually and collectively, If you are just concerned with your own measly jobs in the railways, then the system is not going to change. And that's not desirable. And therefore, please raise your voices. Thank you.